everyone, to this episode of the Freedom Hub Working Group. I am your host, Jeff Cantor, along with my co-host, Charles Froman. We are sponsored by your Freedom Hub, and we are the area where all the entrepreneurial and activists tend to meet to disrupt this place for a little better world, for sure. We are definitely recording these, so they are released over the weekend. So every Monday, you can just come to any one of these, your favorite web domains, and you'll be able to see this and any others, and they go back for a number of years. But truthfully, you could watch a 2-year-old one, you would think we recorded it yesterday. The stuff is that important. Now, we do have some sponsors. As I said, we're sponsored by your Freedom Hub, but we're always on the prowl for some really cutting edge things that are out there, and we have come across the most amazing hemp product in the market. And there's an awful lot of them, for sure, but this is the only one that actually is bioactive that we've been able to uncover, and you're able to run a test side by side for yourself. They've got a nice site you can go to. We're definitely able to give you a discount if you decide to buy some stuff, but there's some great videos where they're actually showing side by sides of their program with doctors against others. So you'll see there isn't a dramatic difference. Now, before we get into today, just to show you real fast, this is the main site you'll want to get in here. This is more under construction. You'll see some more stuff coming up here. Here are some of the videos from the past. This is just one of the channels, and you'll see there's an awful lot of really fantastic ones with some great speakers. And then here's the site where you'll be able to go to learn a little bit more about that program. But let's talk about today for a minute, and let's get into our current member. And we've got an attorney with us today, Sheldon Waxman. He's the author of Rebel in the Courtroom, which is a great book. I'll show you that in a minute. And also, he was a former assistant prosecutor and had some engagements with the Black Panthers. So that's some very interesting things to talk about. And also about your conscience, because you always have to wonder about an attorney, because, you know, are they representing only the person, or are they representing the law or principle? And so there's a lot of ways you can kind of go in that regard. And as you can see, this is his great book that he's got available, and this happens to be the Amazon listing for it. So you'll certainly want to scope that out. And on that note, Sheldon, I'm going to give you the floor. What you can do for the bulk of us is give us like a little background on your history to kind of lead us to where you are right this minute, and then kind of kick into what you'd like to talk about today.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Excellent.
Oh, I can see myself now. All right. Well, I was about as pro-government as you can get. I was at Argonne National Laboratory, an adjunct of the, at the time, the Atomic Energy Commission. I had top secret clearance. And it was a very boring job, but I often wonder if I had stayed there, life would have been a lot better for me now. But I used to sleep with my eyes open. It was so boring. Pay was good pension plan. But I saw an offering for a position with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago. And it sounded exciting to me, so I got the job, and I became an assistant United States attorney, doing what federal prosecutors do: criminal cases, civil cases. And everything went well until I think it was in 3 years into my position there. A civil case came on my desk, and it was related to the murder of Fred Hampton, December 9th, 1969. And I was defending the FBI that had been sued by the plaintiffs. And I needed to respond to a discovery request that was made by the plaintiffs. And the discovery request was for any documents related to the incident, the murder. Well, I remember to this day, I made an appointment with the FBI that was going through documents. And I was called to a room, and there was about 6 FBI agents there. And the room was piled high with cartons of documents. And this one guy says, here's the documents that have been requested. You can go through them and pick out what you want to give them. And I don't know, something clicked in my mind. I didn't like that arrangement. I said, no. I said, you go through this stuff and you give me what you think is relevant to the discovery request. So some time went by. I got a file folder from this agent that contained about, I don't know. Oh, before this, I had made an announcement to the media that a whole truckload of documents were related to the discovery request. And then I got the file, and the only document that was relevant was a chart of the apartment of Fred Hampton. And I asked my boss, what do I do? I asked the first assistant United States attorney, I asked everybody I could, what should I do? And they all said, use your best discretion, which to me meant I wasn't supposed to hand that document over. But anyway, I did. And then I decided that I was going to quit because I couldn't really handle that case anymore. So I retired and became a sole practitioner. I had my own little shop. And the time went on, and I got some kind of reputation as a lawyer who represented tax protesters. So I got quite a few cases involving tax protesters. And the last case I had involving a tax protester, I represented the famed Irwin Schiff. Anyway, to make a long story short, because this could go on forever, they tried to disbar me twice. Once I had turned over that document, I became persona non gratis to the establishment. And I was, forced to take on tax protester cases. None of the big firms in Chicago would hire me. But anyway, that's the spiel. The one thing I want to let you know, this was the book that preceded Rebel in the Courtroom. It's called In the Teeth of the Wind. A study of power and the fighter. Now, this was way too much stuff, and I had some time to when I moved up to Michigan that I took to cull it down, make it take a lot of personal stuff out of the book, and one thing that I did that I shouldn't have done was I took out all of the chapter headings that I had in the Teeth of the Wind. And those chapter headings were really good. And I took it out. I shouldn't have taken it out, but I did. I thought people should decide for themselves what this chapter is about. But anyway, here's the original chapter headings. I'll read them briefly because I don't know if you can get there. Chapter 4, it all started with the Conspiracy 7 case. Chapter 5, some call it murder, a case of J. Edgar Hoover's paranoia. Chapter 6, let the seller beware. Chapter 7, the spooks, an untold story of Watergate. Chapter 8, they got the wrong man. There's no out button in the computer. Chapter 9, the inventor and the king of the gypsies. Chapter 10, the wacky packy and his holy war. Chapter 11, we beat them all. Chapter 12, the iniquitous representative of Satan and the guys in Taft, California. Chapter 18, if I wasn't black, I'd get more pay. Chapter 15, they come after me. Chapter 16, the traitor, it's my name, not the money. Chapter 7, the murder case, a case of mistaken identity. Chapter 18, politics and the flat rate tax. Chapter 19, various tax cases and social insecurity. Chapter 20, trial and appeal tactics and philosophical tidbits. Chapter 21, the Rainmaker, a unified conspiracy defense. Chapter 22, where's the body? Chapter 23, there's something rotten in Berrien County, Michigan. Chapter 24, the liberal judge who wasn't liberal. Chapter 25, he was a bad guy, so they shot him in the back. Chapter 26, a perjury case. And then chapter 27 is essays and speech. So those are the chapters that are in Rebel. Unfortunately, I didn't title those chapter headings in Rebel, but I just read them all to you, and that's about it. So, I mean, the point is, what I did destroyed my life as a member of the elite. If I hadn't screwed up, according to them, by revealing what I revealed to the plaintiffs, who went on to win $1,950,000 in a judgment against the government, I would have been on easy street now, probably a federal judge or more. The guy that took over for me, who I said, Arnie, watch out. The FBI is going to trip you up on this. He didn't listen to me, and he got caught withholding documents. But for taking the fall for the FBI, he became a millionaire in the commodities market, like Hillary did, and became the chief of staff of the Illinois governor, James Thompson, who was the U.S. attorney at the time. So that's about it. If there's any questions, I mean, so I ended up poor when I could have ended up rich. And people always ask me, would I've done it over again the same way? And I hem and haw, and I really don't know. I'd have to be confronted with it to make a determination. But anyway, that's it. I quit practicing law at 70. I'm 79 now. And that's about all I have to say.
Sheldon, this is Jeff Cantor chatting here for a minute before we take some questions. So now that you've been retired and you're looking backwards, and obviously it's always a, could I have done this and would I have done that? And who knows what really would have happened? Would you have been a millionaire? Or who knows what other else might have happened? But of course, it's always hard to say. But now you've had time to reflect. So I wouldn't even ask you so much about what happened to you per se, but what you did and the causalities and the different things that you've allowed to occur, or that now, lets other people see the hem is showing a little bit with the inner sanctum of the government. Has things improved, gotten worse? Where are we going?
Oh, I think things are much worse now. I mean, I can't even recognize what's going on in politics. I'm very alienated from everything that's going on. I haven't voted since 1978, so it doesn't matter to me. I'm not involved in politics. I remember what my dad said to me, one of the things that sticks to you always, he said, they're all crooks. And, what else can you say? They're in it for themselves.
Sure.
And government's gotten way too big. I went to the House Ways and Means Committee to argue for a flat rate tax. I'll never forget it. And the chairman said to me, 3 members out of 26 that they have. And I said, where is everybody? He said, oh, well, we tape this and then they'll look at it later. I said to him, you got to separate tax policy from raising revenue. And he looked at me and he said, that'll never happen. So that's the problem.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, do you think it's better? I mean, a lot of people know a lot more these days than historically they've known. So even though things are functioning in kind of a negative way, do you think there's a better understanding amongst the population what's afoot? And that might ultimately lead to some better outcomes later on?
I think one way or the other, the people at the top, they get what they want no matter what. So I don't think public opinion matters to them much. They manipulate the money and they're
Go ahead. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll commiserate with you for a minute because I myself was the campaign manager for Irwin Schiff when he was seeking the Libertarian presidential candidate nomination in the year that Harry Brown got it. And it was entertaining, to be sure, and he was a wonderful guy and quite the flamboyant character and humorous and a frustrated magician and
a fabulous man.
Amazing. And what a memory. The guy knew everything chapter and verse. It was spectacular. You never wanted to have to engage him in any kind of a intellectual argument because he knew everything by rote. But what was interesting, in those days, you only had the radio and so on. So we were to be on this one giant radio station that was going to broadcast to multiple states. And this was pre-cell phones and everything, too. So he and I talked, and off he was to go. And then I get a call from the producer at the station going, where is your candidate? I said, what are you talking about? The guy left a long time ago. He should have been there for a while already. Nope, he's not here. And we're getting ready to go to air. And then lo and behold, he was a no-show. Well, that had me all panicked because then I couldn't get in touch with the guy and I didn't know how to figure out what was going on with him. And I'm calling and leaving messages and whatever. And ultimately he calls me back to tell me that after he talked to me and went to leave, there were a bunch of IRS agents in the car park, and they detained him until he missed the show.
Yeah.
And that was like indicative of what, was going on out there. And it's just sad to see. And then in the end, just for everybody else's edification, he ended up imprisoned. And then he died ultimately, and they left him shackled to the bed that he died in. His son, Peter, tried to, plead to let him come home and die at home or something. And they said, nope, we're going to torture this guy to the last possible second.
Well, he was supposed to get out in 2 weeks. 2 weeks after he died.
That was his official parole date, ideally.
They were only it wasn't parole. It was kind of like a mercy deal.
Well, it was. Okay. So yeah, but see, in the end, but that's indicative, like you said, they're trying to pillory people that are just trying to do the honest thing, which is to put the information out there and not just kowtow to the powers that be. And he was made to be example like others.
I represented him on appeal, and I was censored by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, who attempted to disbar me for filing a brief that was a page more than the maximum allowed, which I beat by the Michigan Attorney Disciplinary Committee thought that was a joke. But anyway, the truth of the appeal, the truth of the trial of Irwin Schiff is that they never proved, the government never proved willful conduct on his part, because just citing cases, which is what the government did, doesn't prove willful conduct, that you did it on purpose and you did it knowing that it was false. They never proved that. They just basically told the jury, you know, this court said he's nuts, the other court said he's nuts, everybody says he's nuts, you know. That's what that was their case. But, you know, he's an extreme, of course, he made money doing what he did. I didn't make any money doing what I did, but he made money. I remember I had lunch with him in Las Vegas. He said he was making about $150,000, $200,000 a year. So we were different in that respect. But in the respect of being picked on by the power guys, was something that we both went through. And I wanted to represent him at the trial, but he was so bent on the fact that he could talk his way out of anything. Anyway, Irwin was a great man. I mean, his famous cartoon book, what's the name of it? The Kingdom of Maltz. Mm-hmm. Did you ever read that one?
Fantastic one, absolutely. It's one of the best things I've ever seen, and I bought bunches of it and used to give it out to people because it explained how money works and how government works in such a great way. You know, it was interesting, and for those that want to ask some questions, just do a little hand raise icon. You'll see on the periphery there, and I'm going to fill a little airtime here for a quick second while you do that.
Yeah, basically, by the way, I'd like to make a recommendation. The thing that really got me into liberty was reading Frederick Bastiat's The Law. I think everybody should read it. I think it's available on the internet for free. So, and it's like less than 100 pages, I think.
It is.
But it tells it all. He was at the pinnacle of the classic liberal period that didn't last long enough in the 1850s. And he says it all. He says, you know, we're ruled by a mob of very wealthy people that can, you know, and as far as the government's concerned, you have administrative agencies that are making law without having to go through Congress. And we're ruled by administrative agencies. That's the government, the bureaucrats.
That is, and you're really describing what is the most insidious part about it, because you think you're voting for these representatives, but they come and go. But the people sitting at the FDA or the EPA or whatever are the ones that are passing rules that function like laws. You know, desks this tall, lights this bright, toilets that flush this much.
Yeah, well, but you know, the problem is you can't get rid of this by getting rid of regulations. You got to get rid of the agencies.
Right.
I mean, you got to eliminate them. I mean, really.
It's going to be brutal. I mean, there's the Rural Electric Authority, which was created during like the Depression to wire rural America, and yet that organization still exists, and now they're like doing overseas Peace Corps like stuff and whatever. So they never seemingly die. You know, it is pretty amazing. I see Keisha's got her hand up here. Hold on one sec. You're unmuted. Keisha, you there?
Am I there?
No, it was this person had their hand.
I'm here.
There he is. Okay, go for it.
Okay, so I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I got lost. So it seems like what you're saying is that government has a power that is unrestrained, and anybody doing an honest job is at a disadvantage or might lose out in the end. So I was asking myself, like, there's got to be rules to take them to court for anything wrong that they do, or is it that you don't have the resources to fight back? What's the issue here? Unrestrained power, or is the resources?
Well, you can't really fight the government. I mean, you can't. I had one case that related to whether somebody was an independent contractor or an employee that lasted for 9 years. And they had 150 lawyers that they threw at me over 9 years. I finally won. It's described in my book. But you know, they don't pay their lawyers millions of dollars. You know what I mean?
You know, the reality though too is they have like an endless supply of lawyers. How long can a normal person continue to fight before they finally say, "Oh, let's just settle already"?
That's right. That's what they do.
They just
That's it.
wear you down to a nub after a while. And
Well,
and they're using our taxpayer dollars to pay to come after ourselves.
well, in this book, which, you know, the subtitle is A Study of Power and How to Fight It.
Here, I've got it up. Let's take a look while you're telling about it.
Yeah, well,
Here you go. People can buy it.
yeah, they can buy it, and I won't get any royalties for it. So anyway, I had an argument with the publisher, but it's got the basic information that's in this book is in Rebel in the Courtroom. So
Okay, that's this one here.
yeah, I recommend buy that one.
Is this the best place to buy it, or is there somewhere else you typically sell it?
No, Amazon's the place.
That's your place. Okay, excellent. All right, let's see. I know we have some other people with hands up here, so let's see what we've got.
I don't know if I answered the man's question or not.
Well, sadly, no, but yes, because you know it's not like there's a law. What are you suing for? They just extended some regulation that was left vague by Congress, and then the organization or administration or agency says desks need to be 36 inches tall. Well, it's kind of a law, but it isn't. But you can't sue over it either.
The biggest problem is, well, one of the biggest problems. The first thing I would do if I could change the Constitution would be to remove life tenure for federal judges.
Yeah, and have term limits of some sort for people in office too.
Well, that's another story. That's never going to.
Same sort of problem though. They come fresh and green, but you give them enough time, the next thing you know, they're all corrupted because they've made too many buddies. Get them in, get them out. They don't have time but to follow the rules and then get out of there. So,
well, I mean, they have access to information that nobody else has.
Yeah, that too. Absolutely.
They make millions on the stock market.
Yeah. Yeah, look at how rich all of them tend to leave office.
That's
Guy,
what we
I
get.
see you got. Let me get some else jumping in here. Guy, I see you've got your hand up there.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if the Federal Reserve is part of this mob in the government or if they're just financing.
No, they're definitely part of the mob. I mean, they all come from the same place, you know, the big banks. I mean, the history of all of them is big bank. I mean, all of them. Steve Mnuchin, I mean, you know, I mean, I've been following the Fannie Mae story, okay, Fannie and Freddie, and how they were nationalized. And that litigation has been going on for 9 years. It's the only company, Fannie FNMA is the only company I have stock in. And I've been following this litigation that's been going on endlessly. At first, A lot of people filed a lawsuit. You know, you can't do that. You can't do that. That's unconstitutional. Well, the regulator of Fannie Mae, the Federal Housing Finance Authority, the act that made that agency, it says that only the agency can sue. So all the courts, they eliminated all these lawsuits because they said only the agency could sue the agency. I mean, talk about ridiculous, honest to God. But anyway, there's still pending. There's a court of claims case that's still pending that still has a good chance of ruling that the takeover was a violation of the Fifth Amendment due process taking clause, which is what it was. They just took over a company. And it was the same big bankers. I mean, Hank Paulson, all these guys. I mean,
Well, only
we are being ruled by a clique. I mean, I don't know. I forgot the word for what they are.
cabal.
Not, you know, like monarchy. What's the, doesn't matter. We're being ruled by a mob.
It's a ruling class in its own way, like you said, and even if it's not malicious, it's like being in a private club and you just keep recommending your buddies and your buddies' kids. I mean, it just becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if you're willing to be a part of it, like you had to be, either got to sell out or you get pushed out. And most never get the opportunity. Where the difference was, if you'd never been offered, you'd have probably just slugged along and everything been fine. But because
they don't take on renegades. Okay,
that's what I mean. Because you expose yourself. Yeah.
Your history's got to be, before you can go work for them, it's got to be pro-government kind of thing. You know.
Sure. Well,
How did Greenspan get in power there?
You know, I communicated quite a bit with Milton Friedman, and he said he was real pissed off that they kept referring to him as a conservative. He wrote me a letter. He says, "I keep telling them I'm a libertarian. I'm not a conservative, and they keep putting in conservative." He was so pissed off about that. But anyway, I mean, you know, I took the path I did. A lot of the reason for it was that I thought that I would be honored for doing what I did. And I didn't realize that what I thought was being an honor was something that they didn't like, and it pissed them off. And they put a mark on my forehead, you know. But I had a lot of fun. I represented some great characters. Paul Bell in Bakersfield, Taft, California. Quite a guy. And they basically removed me as a lawyer representing Paul Bell. It's in my book. It's kind of you wouldn't think it could happen, but it could happen. They broke down my door in Bakersfield and put a 45 up against my head, in front of my wife and my young daughter. And then they took me in shackles to the Fresno County lockup in chains. And I remember being in the back of the car, and one of the marshals said, "What's the big deal? I don't like paying taxes either." That was funny. But, you know, my advice is, if you're going to take the path that I took and do the right thing, when the bad guys are telling me don't go that way, just understand that there's a price to pay for it. You may be rewarded, but probably not. And so I think if I had spent more time thinking about it, I might not have done it. But I was so irritated that the government could actually murder a citizen. I mean, the whole COINTEL program that I revealed, by the way, I was the one that really blew the COINTEL program wide open. There's so many people that are dead because of what J. Edgar Hoover did. I'll bet you that it's probably close to 50 or 100 that got killed because of him. I mean, murdered, like Fred Hampton. I wrote a screenplay called The Black Messiah Murders, but could never get any money for the production of it. If anybody's interested in checking it out, it's on mockingbirdfilms.com. That's a producer. He's a wannabe producer. Can't get any money. Anyway, when I think about it, it's been a fun trip. I wish I had more money, but who doesn't,
That's right. We wish we paid less taxes and had more money. So everybody sort of seems to be in agreement on that. Let me ask you this as an observation question. So since you found yourself on the outs and you had to deal with like Irwin and others that have been kind of run afoul of everything, but you look at the people you've had to work with and represent and got to know, and then those that were sort of on the opposing side and who you had dealings with before you got ousted, what would you say the differences in the principles and character of those two sides of that coin?
I think the people on the good side are idealists and don't think about ramifications of their actions. And the bad guys are practical. They're practical people. They understand what's involved and they know what's good for them. So they're not going to do anything stupid. But on the other side, you're dealing with a lot of naivete. Did I think I was going to get recognition for what I did? I did, and it never happened. So don't go, whistleblowers, what advice would I give them? Because I considered I was basically a whistleblower. I blew the lid off of the FBI COINTEL program. Go slow. Don't make a hasty decision about doing something you may regret later on in life. I don't regret what I did. I did the right thing, and that's what I always tell people. They say, would you do it over again? I say, I did the right thing. It may have not been the practical thing, but it was the right thing.
Well, that's what I was kind of getting at. I mean, you either have to live with yourself or you just sort of sell yourself out a little bit. Isabel, my favorite quote I used to bore my kids with was from Isabel Patterson, who was well known for her little aphorisms, one of which was being in possession of a cartload of bricks does not make one a mason. But the one that I like, which plays into what you're talking about, is that principles are real easy to maintain. That is, if you have any. And that kind of boils down to what side that person chooses to be. Do I understand what would be opportunistic and financially good for me, so I'll just keep my head down and sell out, so to speak? Or do I point out when I see the emperor has no clothes?
Well, what's your answer?
It's a tough one, but I would err on the side of it saying that the emperor has no clothes, because it's just going to take a certain percentage to suddenly realize that for things to actually change. Because if you just continue to keep your head down, it's only going to get worse. It's like trying to appease a mob. They just want more. They never get satisfied.
Well, I think the youngsters of the 60s had the right idea. What? Drop out, tune in. I forgot what the rest of
It
it
was
was.
tune out, drop out, or I don't know what, or party or something or other like that. Just take care of yourself and just, for instance, I know from having been involved in politics a long time ago, before everything was on the net and everybody knew everything about everything. And we had a woman involved in an organization. She was older, but she dropped out because she said, "I just don't want to know this anymore." It keeps me up at night, and I never notice it in my real life. If I ignore all this stuff, I can still have my garden and go to the grocery store, and you're immune. You don't even know there is bad things happening if you shelter your own little world. And a lot of people are like that automatically. They're just too busy to even pay attention to a lot of all this horrible stuff that's really happening in the background.
Well, it looks like we're leading up to another war.
Something's brewing domestically and internationally between where China's trying to go and what they're doing in the South Pacific. And, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's definitely interesting time.
Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff going on in Iran now with buildings getting blown up.
Yeah. And who knows who's really behind that or not. I know who they're going to lay blame to as a typical boogeyman, but it might be true and it might not. So there's a lot of stuff afoot. It's a very interesting world. As usual, everybody says, man, you live in interesting times. I've yet to see a decade that wasn't in its own little perverted way. So,
yeah.
So what do you think's going to happen? Is there anyone following in your wake or kind of picking up the mantle of the kind of things you've tried to do? How about like the Institute for Justice? I mean, they seem like they're a very positive force in the world.
Paul Bell in Taft, California used to say, 501's the devil's son. And he meant people that ask the government for exemption under the 501c3 provision are taking on the devil. They become the son of the devil. So I'm always suspicious of any group that advertises that they have 501c3 tax exemption. I don't know why. It's just one of the things.
Yep, I hear you in that regard. All right, let's see if we got some time for a last question here from anybody. Go ahead and raise your hand for me. And then in terms of like this book, I mean, what kind of reception have you had? I mean, have people written to you, or what sort of responses has it generated, or has it inspired anybody? What do you think that book's accomplished?
Not much. I think the reviews that I got on Amazon, which people can look up.
Let's take a look. I'm going to put it up while we're talking. Go ahead.
Yeah, the reviews are the best advertisement that I ever could get. But the problem is, it's a self-published book. I couldn't get a publisher. There's only two companies that are distributors of books. And if you can't get a major publisher to do your book, to publish your book, you're not going to get one of the distributors involved that distribute books to airports and bookstores and stuff like that. So, I mean, you're not going to make much money. I mean, I've never made much money on this. And I think unfortunately, I have no restrictions that I can provide to my publisher, which is, Amazon Books. So they can do whatever they want with it. And I think one of the things is that they have a free Kindle offer. So, I mean, I never made much money. I can't even think, maybe at the most $10,000 maybe.
And I see that you're describing that, and it does say Kindle $0.
Yeah, I know.
How do they make money in that instance? And then how do they pay you? I mean, if they're pushing your material out there, they must give you some compensation.
Only if it's a hardcover. I mean, a paperback.
They're able to give it away for free just because they're publishing it on your behalf, as it were?
Yeah, well,
What a great situation that guy
I could-
figured out.
I have the copyright rights, so I could cancel it if I had some other place to go.
That's just it. They got
But I
you a little
don't.
barrel. Right, there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
Guy's got another good question for us. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's any effort legally around the country to sue these municipalities and I guess even governors over this COVID-19 shutdown by some kind of class action lawsuit or something like that from businesses that have been really affected by the states and even the cities just overreaching.
It's a national emergency. They can do whatever they want, basically. And you file a lawsuit, you'll be a very old man by the time it's over with. I mean, you can sue the government as a matter of law, but as a matter of practicality, it's a waste of time. Better spent acting like a libertarian, promoting free association, voluntary cooperation. I mean, it really irks me that they're blaming all of this unrest on anarchists. It's not anarchists. It's you know, it's a mob. It's anarchists are peaceful. If you look at the history of anarchists, see they do something that really shouldn't be done. Anarchy is defined as without government, and a secondary definition, which should never be used by the media, means chaos or chaotic. So they're using a secondary definition of anarchy when they don't explain that the first definition means without government. You know, I'm actually sort of believing that some of this chaos that's going on is related to the fact that we have too much government. I think there's a sense of rebellion that seems to be rising over the fact that the government has so much control over our lives. And I think that's a good thing. So, you know, they'll bring out the troops and they'll stop whatever rioting there is because they own the guns. So I don't see any revolution taking place. We should have, you know, Jefferson thought that we should have a constitutional convention every 19 years, which is considered to be a generation. And we've never had a constitutional convention. I think we're dealing with different times, and I think, you know, I think there should be a reformulation of our government. I'm basically an anarchist. I don't believe in government at all anymore. I've seen too much. I don't believe in government at all. But I realize that's a kind of idealistic opinion. And it may be centuries before it ever happens, but we got to start tearing down government. We got to get rid of the agencies. We got to get rid of the Federal Housing Finance Authority, which does nothing. They have 600 employees, and they all average around $175,000 a year to do nothing. The head of the FHFA is a guy named Mark Calabria. Because he was with some group that was, you know, maybe pro-liberty. They call him a libertarian, and he's not a libertarian. He's a government bureaucrat. And poor Fannie and Freddie, they've been in conservatorship for 9 years now. And some of the suits are finally coming to a head. And I think the case is right in the Supreme Court right now, because there was, I mean, I don't want to get into that. I've been following it for 3 years. I got a small amount of stock, 2,500 shares. And I've been hoping to hit it big for 3 years now. And it's a perfect, the litigation history of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac is a history on what it means to go up against the government and fight them. And this is an answer to that man who asked the question, well, can't you sue? If you were to check into the litigation of Fannie Mae against the Federal Housing Finance Authority, you would see years and years and years and years of litigation without end, and never coming to a proper resolution. I bought the shares on the belief that, oh my God, this is a Fifth Amendment violation. It's a taking. They took these private companies. I mean, the government just took them over. I mean, it was astounding when I found out about it. I said, there's no way. There's no way that the government can prevail on this. And they have. They have for 10 years. They've gotten away with it. And the same crooks were involved in that. The same big bank crooks were involved in putting Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in conservatorship, using a ruse that they were going insolvent, which wasn't true. I mean, the litigation, the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac litigation, if after you've done a thorough 6-month review of all the litigation, because it'll take you at least that long, if you can't realize that you just can't fight the government and win, and how screwed up the judiciary is, these federal judges, they can do whatever they want, and they do. They held me in contempt of court for filing a brief that was 1 page longer than was allowed. They fined me $2,000, and they told me I had to file an affidavit that I've advised all the judges that I practiced before that I was found in contempt of court, and they sent a complaint to the Registration Disciplinary Commission, which didn't go anywhere. But I mean, the reason why I said a study of power in this book and how to fight it, I did find a way to fight them in court. It was the use of a lie list. I had a chart on all of the pleadings that the government would file in this one case. And I had them classified according to a lie, half-truth. I can't remember what the categories were. But anyway, it turned out that the judges couldn't ignore that. There was no way that they could. You see, when you get into litigation with the government, they lie. They lie and cheat. You can't believe it. So if you keep track of all the lies and you write it down and file a paper in court pointing out that this is a lie and that's a lie and that's a lie, I mean, they have to deal with it. You understand what I mean? They have to deal with it. They can't ignore it. So you'll probably end up getting some kind of settlement.
Interesting. Well, Sheldon, unfortunately, I have to actually kind of cut us a little short because we're running out of time already, believe it or not. And here we thought we were just going to zip through it and have little to talk about. I did want to showcase a couple of things you mentioned just for everyone else to see that really don't know this stuff. This is one of the books that Irwin wrote, and this is the one where he explained about the unlawfulness of taxes and how to avoid them and all the rest of it. And boy, this got him in big time trouble, this particular book. And his background was he started as an accountant and he got the job with the Army and figured out they were cooking the books, and that got him off into his path.
That book was banned by the Ninth Circuit.
Oh, see,
it's one of the only 2 books that have ever been banned.
Right, and we're banning books in America. And then the other one was that one you're talking about, The Kingdom of Moles.
Kingdom of Moles. the classic story of inflation. It's unbelievable.
What a great, and this is this other one here too. This other one, how an economy grows and why it doesn't. This is another one that's done as a cartoon-like book, but boy, this thing is fantastic. How well it
You know,
explains how
the guy,
money is fabricated and what happens.
the guy was absolutely brilliant. I've never met another person that comes even close.
Look what his stuff is selling for. This book's going for $89.
What, the
Amazing.
Kingdom of Oats?
Yeah, look at that. No, this is why how an economy grows and why it doesn't. $89 they're asking for it. The other one you mentioned, which was also quite good, which is very good, is Bastiat's The Law. And here it is on Mises.org. It is free. You can download it. And it's amazing, as old as this is, it's as fresh as yesterday, what he talks about and the reality of how law should be applied. And like you said, and what is the function in place for the state to be. So it was very interesting situation. Then to add to that, this was Mike Maloney, and he has this Hidden Secrets of Money series, and here he explains how money's created, how the Fed works. These are some spectacular videos.
Bastiat had a saying that was really stuck with me. Of course, I don't remember it in its entirety, but he said, if you put people in power over your lives, it's bound to lead to plunder. And that's the problem with government.
And that's time immemorial because people don't change. We suddenly have cell phones, but we're still the same people we were 150 years ago type of thing. So anyway, there's this. And then the other one that was really very good, I don't know if you yourself have seen this, but there's this movie that's already old called Life Incorporated. And it's all about how did life become a corporation? And it goes through back when the kings and they had chartered the first companies and how one thing led all the way to where we are today. What a brilliantly conceived little 9-minute film this is.
No, I
I
have to
really recommend this. Yeah, definitely like it. Life Incorporated. So anyway, that was fantastic. Well, I definitely want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's very nice.
Oh yes, and just
a lot of fun.
Oh, good. Well, it's a chance to get to hear what you're talking about. We've preserved this now for posterity, so this will be beneficial. As we're closing out here, just want to let you know we got one other big sponsor, and this is rather interesting. This is an organization, just goes to show when we were just so topical in certain ways. They have these herbal formulas that fix viruses and stuff. Well, this guy's actually did stuff and did research and was able to cure people of SARS and also works in COVID-19. Very scientific on how the whole thing functions and so on. And so what they're offering is a special chance to actually have a consultation with the doctor who's the inventor of all of this stuff. And here's like the whole little science paper on it and so on. You can take a look. It's really very interesting. And meanwhile, I was letting you get a little meeting with this guy himself for $249 normally for free if you use this little code. So you just go on their site, you'll see he offers a consultation. And short of that, I wanted to again thank everyone for coming today.